Hello, my name's Phil and welcome back to another video of Vermont's 100 covered bridges. So this week we're at the Worral Bridge in Rockingham, and as you can see there's a speed limit, horses at a walk, motor vehicles at 10 miles an hour. The River Williams is behind me, and that is where we were last week at the Bartonsville Bridge, which is a mile away upstream. It's a lot smaller than the Bartonsville Bridge. This is 83 feet long. Beautiful sight from down here. As I'm coming underneath, sure you can see the branches, the debris that has got stuck under here whenever the last storm was. How the heck did that get under there? So here's a video taken, as you can see the date there, which was the same date that the Bartonsville Bridge went down. And you can see the effect that the Storm Irene had on the Worral Bridge. And remember, it's just a mile downstream from the Bartonsville Bridge. So everything that was discarded from the Bartonsville Bridge was aiming directly for the Worral Bridge. A lucky miss there. The water just wasn't quite high enough for that debris to hit the bridge. And now we find the level of the water right under the bridge, and as you can see, everything coming down now is just hitting the bridge face on. And now the water is just battering the side of the bridge. And now you can see that the bridge and all the land around it is completely engulfed. So I want to give you a little bit more detail about the Williams River. In last week's episode, the Bartonsville Bridge, I gave all the stats, how long it is, the mouth, the source, etc. But there's a big story behind the name of the river, and also a tragic subplot that actually connects this river to a covered bridge 50 miles away from here. So the river was named after John Williams, and he was one of the leading preachers, and he was based in Deerfield in Massachusetts. Now at the time, we're talking 1704, so Vermont as a state didn't exist, and of course we are 72 years before independence in America. And at the time, the French and the English were fighting over, obviously, land rights in the north of England and Canada. And it was Queen Mary's War, and the French had formed alliances with a couple of the local Native American tribes. And in one night, they actually did a raid on the town of Deerfield. Now in this raid, they actually killed 56 people and took 112 prisoners. And the plan then was to march the prisoners north all the way up to Quebec, and this took about 3 months to do. And when they actually crossed, when the party were being marched literally from Deerfield up to Quebec, they stopped at the mouth of this river. Obviously it wasn't called the Williams River then, and the preacher John Williams did a little sermon, and it was like the first sermon ever made in what became Vermont. And I'm going to read what he said, and it was from the Old Testament, and it was actually from Lamentations, the book of Lamentations, chapter 1 verse 18. Hear now, all peoples, and behold my sorrow. My virgins and my young men have gone into captivity. So it was understandable why he said that, because I say they were actually being held captive and marched quite a few hundred miles north. Now, there is a plaque at the site where he did make that speech, and I'll go and visit that in a while after I've finished here. So here is the monument dedicated to John Williams. It's situated, not an ideal place. Where that car's going is Route 5, and this way is 103 North. I mean, I've literally just had to pull over, so it's not in a lay-by or, you know, anywhere where people can come and see, which is a shame given the historical significance of John Williams to this area. It looks a bit wasted to me, which is a shame. But anyway, let's take a look at what the plaque says. At the mouth of the Williams River, a few rods east of this place, Reverend John Williams, a Deerfield captive, on Sunday, March the 5th, 1704, preached the first Protestant sermon delivered in the territory that later became the state of Vermont, erected by William French, chapter DAR 1912. I've got a picture here of when it was actually officially opened. I've got no idea who the individuals are in the picture, but here is the monument to Reverend John Williams. So I've just come downstream to give another side of the story that I've just told you relating to John Williams from the outset. And the John Williams story is a very long one, and I cut it down, didn't do it any justice at all. But there's a tragic side to the story, which I didn't tell, but I'm about to tell you. And that was when the night they were captured. It was the last night of February in 1704, and over 300 of the French army and 2 of the local native tribes attacked the village of Deerfield, and as I say, 56 were killed, including 2 children of John Williams. Now, at this point, I'm going to backtrack on something I said in my very first video at the Green River in Guildford. For those of you that watched it, you may recall that I actually mentioned that there were 2 covered bridges on the Green River, but only one of them was in Vermont. And I said something there that I'm now actually going to have to change. So for those, either refresh your memory, or for those of you who haven't watched it, and I urge you to please do watch it, this is what I said back then. There is one more covered bridge on the Green River, and that is 11 miles downstream, and that is in Massachusetts. But that is not for this video or for this series. So here we are down at the Green River in Greenfield, Massachusetts, where I said I wasn't going to come, but it is related to the story of John Williams and the Williams River, which we've just been to the Worral Bridge and the Bartonsville Bridge. So here we're going to continue with the story I've already told, but now it takes a bit of a dark and a tragic turn, and one that had an immense effect on John Williams and his family. So on the last night of February, the town of Deerfield, as I've already explained, was attacked by the French army and 2 different tribes of American native Indians. Now, as I've said, 56 were killed and 112 were actually held captive. Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that most of the 56 that were killed were young children and the elderly, and those that weren't able to make a 300-mile hike to Quebec. If we were to make this journey now, if we were going to hike 300 miles from Deerfield all the way up to Quebec, we wouldn't do it in March when the snow was knee-deep. We'd have our best hiking boots on, we'd have a great fleece jacket, waterproof jacket over that, we'd have our water bottle, we'd probably have a hotel booked every night along the way with a bar next to it, hopefully, or preferably, or we'd have taken the latest style of camping gadgets, fold-away tents that take like half a minute to to set up. Clearly, in 1704, this party of 112 and the army and the 2 Native American tribes wouldn't have had those luxuries. Also, they'd have had to have carried their equipment with them and put up these tents or whatever it was that they were going to sleep in this snow. And then there's the food. Where were they getting the food from every day to feed this group? One thing is certain, that obviously not everybody would have made it to Quebec 3 or 4 months later. Now, I'm going to actually tell the story of a woman who was in the group of 112 that was held captive. She was a mother of 7, and she lost 2 children in the raid. The youngest was only 6 weeks old. Now, her herself wasn't really in a fit state to make this 300-mile journey. So the party arrived here at the Green River, and this was really their first challenge of a crossing. Unfortunately, the woman that we're talking about, it was just too much for her. She collapsed trying to cross the river at this point. She hit her head on one of the rocks. Obviously, she fell into the water. Water was icy cold with the snow. Before her husband or anybody else in the party could go and help her, orders were given by the French army to end her life. One of the Native Americans, with a single blow, struck her with the tomahawk. What was even worse for the husband and the 5 children, and for the group who all witnessed this, was there was no time to get her body, be able to bury it, be able to pay some respects and be able to mourn. They were just told to march. Keep marching, we've got to move, we've got to move. And the body of this woman was just left here by the river. The name of this woman was Eunice Williams. Her husband was John Williams. And the name of this covered bridge behind me is the Eunice Williams Covered Bridge. So not only does Eunice Williams have the covered bridge named after her, there is one historical marker there which is slightly fading in the words. This road that I'm now walking on is Eunice Williams Drive, and then just here we have the second historical marker. Eunice Williams, wife of the Reverend John Williams, the redeemed captive, was killed at this place on March the 1st during the Greenfield massacre. So Eunice has clearly not been forgotten and is constantly remembered on the very spot where she tragically was killed. But the story of Eunice hasn't really gone away. There's a legend that her ghost or her spirit appears here often. Some say that she's floating around underneath the bridge and around the bridge in a tragic memory of how she was brutally killed. Some say she appears when families that remind her very much of her own appear, and she's hopeful that that family is her own family that have come back to find her. Some others say that if you drive through here on a clear moonlit night, turn your lights off and beep your horn twice, she may appear to you at the end of the bridge. But I think it's time to leave the Eunice Williams Bridge and head back to the Worral Bridge in Rockingham and finish off the story there. So here we are back at the Worral Bridge again, and I just want to do a final conclusion to the John Williams story. And the reason that we know so much and so much detail about his capture, in fact his whole life, is because he wrote it in this book. It's called The Redeemed Captive, The Return to Zion. And he wrote it in the 2 years that he was held captive in Quebec. And when he came back to Boston, it was published very soon after and became a bestseller. redeemed captive returning to Zion, a faithful history of remarkable occurrences of the captivity and deliverance of Mr. John Williams. Now, I was able to find the book in my local library. If this story of John Williams and his wife Eunice have interested you, I suggest pop down to your local library and I'm pretty sure they'll have a copy. So there's one final fact about the bridge, and it's quite rare that this bridge actually has a ramp leading off this one end, which I believe is the north end. I'll focus the camera around and then you can see it. The reason for the ramp is because in 1936 there was a huge storm. You can see from this picture the area underneath the ramp was completely washed away, and rather than rebuild it, they just simply built the ramp in to go over the piece of land that's washed away. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly do. I mean, the new bridges are great, you know, to see, but the old ones, they just have that something different about them, don't they? And again, I just can't believe, as I said last week, the Bartonsville Bridge, it's the 22nd of October and I'm getting the sunburnt on my head. I mean, I was in that stream and the water was just so cool. Unbelievable for this time of the year, but I'm not complaining. So please like the video, subscribe and share it with your friends, and let's make the channel grow. Once again, big thank you to Vermont Covered Bridge Society for their tremendous help on the website and all the support they give me. And that's it for me. And I'll see you next week in another video.